causes beautiful people, then tells us who we have on.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming back to this show. I am very excited about this episode. I have a really cool guest on tonight, and it's really cool because I was kind of last minute asking him to come on the show. I was like, can you come on tomorrow? And he was gracious enough to come on here and talk to me tonight. He is a very well-known guy who is a Canadian pro wrestler. He's wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, to name a few. He's a former IWGP Intercontinental Champion, and he's also a former Ring of Honor World Champion. And I am talking about Michael Elgin. Man, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Heck of an intro for me. I might have to book you for my personal ring announcer, huh?
Hey, I'm open, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, all right.
So, yeah, thank you for coming on here. You know, like I said, it was kind of last minute that I was able to get you on the show and everything. I'm actually booked out until March on here, so getting you on was really cool that I was able to do that so quickly.
Yeah, man, I'm glad that we could make it happen. Thank you so much.
Definitely. So we're gonna kind of just jump right into a few things here.
Yeah.
And what are some of your earliest memories when it comes to wrestling?
Well, you're gonna have to understand all this and how deep wrestling is rooted into me.
All right.
I was born on December 13th.
Oh,
okay?
Happy late birthday.
Thank you. And the picture of my first Christmas, I'm sitting in a plastic LJN ring with my cousins around me, opening up an LJN Jimmy Hart figure.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I obviously I don't like remember it, but I see the picture of it.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, like I've always just wanted to love pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So soon after that, my cousins, they're about 10 years older than me. So over the next couple years, they started getting out of wrestling and hand me in all their videotapes, their magazines, their toys. And then it was just, I don't have much memories out of other things like trivial TV shows that I watched as a kid. Sure.
Yeah.
We were looking through your set, like talked a little bit about Power Rangers, of course.
Right.
But like outside of wrestling, like there wasn't much to my life.
Yeah.
As an adolescent, it was just like wrestling.
I mean, that sounds like a good childhood to me.
Listen, it was great. My first wrestling event was like 1990. January 1990, so I was like 4 years old going to see Dusty Rhodes and the Big Boss Man in a steel cage.
That's cool.
In my hometown. Like I literally can vividly remember when I was sitting, seeing Dusty on top of the cage. Like I remember that.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, I remember being in kindergarten and the teacher asking everybody what they wanted to be when they grew up, and I wanted to be a pro wrestler. Like it was till about 2016, I don't think I think it was much later, probably 2020. I didn't have like a regular Facebook. I just had my wrestling name as my Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And I made like a real Facebook, and I got all these kids from high school adding me on Facebook. And like every single one of them was like, who would have known the wrestling kid I would have ended up being a wrestler, because Ring of Honor aired a lot in Canada, and so did tunnA when I was there.
Right.
I mean, they're owned by a Canadian company. So a lot of my old people that I used to go to school with and talk about wrestling with, like got to watch me on TV. And I think that's one of like the coolest moments is to have people I knew as a adolescent, as a teenager, kind of reach out just like, hey man, I'm glad you did it.
Right.
I have a friend, Chantel, who probably the greatest message I ever received. She's like, you know what? She has a son, and she said that she often references me when she's talking to her son because we went to school from, like grade 2 to high school.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be a wrestler, and then she got to watch me on TV. So like that, I think some people as wrestlers get lost of why we do this.
Right.
But even more so, I think fans sometimes don't understand what this means to us as wrestlers.
Right.
Like that story, my cousin sending pictures of his kids watching me on TV.
Yeah.
Like that's really cool. And that's something that like I take great pride in, is like that aspect of why I wanted to be a wrestler, because the interactions I always had with wrestlers as a kid were positive,
Right.
which
Right.
actually is the next big thing. Is I was 11 years old. I'll never forget this. My mom was driving. We were coming from like lunch or something,
Okay.
and we're driving, and I swear I could see a poster on one of the telephone poles that was wrestling. And I was like, Mom, you got to pull over. You got to pull over. She's like, what? I was like, there's a wrestling poster.
Yeah.
So she pulls over. I run over. Sure enough, there's a wrestling show that night at the same building that I watched Dusty Rhodes versus Big Boss Man in 1990.
Oh, cool.
And it was indie wrestling. It was IWF from Buffalo, New York. And they were doing a show in Canada.
Uh-huh.
And the main event had tugboat.
Okay.
So I was 11. So this would have been maybe 98, 99.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the show and I watched this match. And it was a small guy with a mask on. And it was a little bit of a chubby guy. And it was one of the greatest matches I'd ever seen in my life. It was like watching Nitro and seeing like Rey Mysterio versus Volano or something. Not quite
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero, but you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I watched the match and I was blown away. Like, it's all I could think of. I went, at intermission, it's an indie show, so I went up and like tried to get a word with them and like bought an autograph and stuff. And then after the show, because I knew that venue because they always had events there. Circus was there, so you kind of got to walk around all the time and see the venue.
Yeah.
So I knew where the people parked. So I
Right.
went out back and I waited, and those two came out, and they talked to me for like a good hour
Oh,
before
wow.
they left. And all I can think about anytime I have an interaction with a fan is if that interaction was like, "Hey, piss off, kid, don't talk to me," would I have chased my dreams?
Right. Right.
Like seriously,
Yeah,
it goes that deep. And
for
I
sure.
always try to remember that when being around fans because I want them to have a positive reaction. Because who knows if a kid that I see at a gym one day
Mhm.
comes up and literally, like, because this has happened, show me a selfie with me on their phone from a couple years ago.
That's cool.
And it's like, oh, cool, man. He's like, yeah, after that day, I joined the gym.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's like, really? He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I asked what it takes to be a wrestler, and one of the things you said was gym. So I wanted to start the gym, and I joined the gym like right after that.
Yeah.
And that's like the most rewarding thing you can get is to even just be like a blip on somebody's story
Right.
is kind of cool.
Right. Right.
And it's kind of cool if you can influence them to chase whatever dream they have, especially if it's a wrestling dream, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So that it goes pretty deep on how the wrestling is rooted in me.
oh, man, that's really cool that you have it so deep within you. And another thing that I've noticed, and this is from reading like Chris Jericho's books or any other Canadian wrestlers' books, wrestling is treated very differently in Canada compared to the United States. It's deeply rooted in a lot of what deeply rooted in Canada, I guess you could say. There's a lot of probably some of my favorite wrestlers come from Canada, and it's all those influences that they had around there, because you get a lot of the influence from that New England part, as well as there's tons of wrestling even in Canada.
Yeah, it's funny. Tiger Hattori in New Japan
Uh-huh.
used to always go. He always used to go, man. I know you Canadian boys are funny, but I never have to worry about how good your matches are going to be because they're always going to be good. It was like me, Kyle O'Reilly, and Kenny Omega sitting there,
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? He goes, every time Japan, Canadian boys come, they're really good, really, really, real athletes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the U.S. boys, they like too much drinking. And we all laughed about it. So it's funny, like that has definitely been a thing where Canada's kind of been known to produce the wrestlers that people at least know of and see
Right.
are much much more apt to a heavy Japanese stylish of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
than more American schools are. Because I feel like Canada was a black hole. So we would often get people that would break out and then come and teach us that style.
Right.
So we were very lucky because they were staying in Canada. So like a Joe Legend goes and spends 6 months in England,
Yeah.
and then he comes and teaches us chain wrestling, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And then low key is seeing one of the girls is at the school and he's a top indie guy, so he come and teaches our style and he and was learned in Japan.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of influences from people, and because a lot of people that made it into TNA at the start of it, like I was in 2002, so I saw Bobby Roode,
Yeah.
Eric Young. I
Yeah.
saw these guys on the indies.
Right.
And then over the years, I was not one of those wrestlers that once I got cleared to wrestle, I just stopped training. I would go into training.
Yeah.
And I lucked out because we would have guys like Bobby stop by, Rhino stop by, a Canadian legend, Tyson Duke stop by. Um, it was an open door of all these guys that the people I was training with had met and been with. And one of my mentors was Sin Bodhi. Do you know Sin?
I know the name.
He
I've
was
heard the name.
Kazarni in WWE for a short run.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
So he was like real good friends with Christian and Edge.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a mentor of mine, would take me on the road, and he would bring a lot of guys into the school.
Yeah.
And also, due to him, when Edge was coming back, me and Sean Spears were training with Edge to get him ring ready for his comeback. I believe it was when he won the belt that New Year's resolution.
That's cool.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
we got a lot of good opportunities in Canada because it's so hard to get out that the
Right.
people who do get out like to come back and give back.
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing that I've noticed, especially, there's a lot more technical wrestlers. You've got your Lance Storms and people like that came out of Canada, and so it's nice to see that. And like you said, they come back and they teach you all of things like chain wrestling.
You know what? I think my generation, not only that, I think my generation really took to heart the way that Jericho and Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, like
Yeah.
for instance, so I started in 2002, and I think Ethan Page and Josh Alexander started in like 2005.
Okay.
And immediately I saw something in them.
Yeah.
Not before anybody listens to this and says some wild stuff, I'm not taking any credit for their success.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
I'm saying is I saw something in them and I was pushing promoters to book them. I was bringing them to the States. Like, I think I wrestled Josh Alexander in a god awful match because he wasn't ready and I was a little bit too eager maybe in like 2005 or 6 at CZW.
Uh-huh.
If you go back and watch like 2006 to like 2008 IWA Mid-South, you'll see Ethan Page and Josh Alexander pop up. Like,
Yeah.
I really pushed for them because I saw something in them. And I think we all knew how difficult it was to get a green card and get out of Canada. Like, you had to be, I don't think people understand. It's like, you have to be the best of the best for a United States company to want to hire you from Canada
Right.
when there's a million wrestlers in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
just getting a green card is a huge accomplishment. Like, me getting a green card bought for me because I was such a good wrestler
Yeah.
that's not a lot of people. That doesn't happen to a lot of people, man. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. Like,
It doesn't.
sincerely, it does not, because it's so much more money and paperwork that you have to do
Yeah.
just to get me to be able to legally work for your company.
Right.
So why would you invest that extra money if you can invest in somebody locally? It doesn't, like, I get it.
Yeah.
So
It says a
I mean,
lot.
since my, I'm trying to think. So you had from Ontario, the only people that made it from around my time, and they started a little bit before me, were Cody Deaner and Sean Spears.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say, and listen, I know Sean Spears was in AEW and stuff, and I know Cody's doing good for TNA, but I would say I've had a better run in companies than they have
Yeah.
out of the companies they have. And that's not disparaging their talent, because I
Right,
think those two
yeah.
are super talented.
Yeah.
I just think they were so set on my goal is WWE that
Mhm.
they didn't expand their horizons to see how much more valuable they can make themselves.
Right. Right.
Like Sean Spears went into NXT when you had the indie revolution of NXT.
Yeah.
He was going to get lost in the shuffle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then the first time it was there, he was there with like Cody and stuff, Cody Rhodes, and he just got overshadowed by the second generation guys, and that happens. But if he had have went and maybe go, okay, I got to go make myself an indie guy, then I think he would have been in the mix.
Yeah.
Like he needed that Matt Cardona indie run.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Right.
And, Cody's had a decent run in TNA. And then you had Steen and Generico, which started breaking out when I was a couple years in. But they were kind of a different region. Like Ontario and Montreal are very much different scenes.
Yeah.
And then you had the Smash Brothers and Speedball.
Yeah.
So since I started in 2002, I mean, there's a couple West Coast of Canada guys, I guess, from Vancouver, like ELP.
Right.
And those new guys, the Northern Armory guys, I think they're Canadian. So you know what I mean? It's not easy to make it out of Canada. It's really not. Like if I put it that way,
yeah.
Think about how many guys you really know from like my area.
Yeah, I'm trying to
come
think.
Out in the last couple of years, and it's not lack of talent.
No.
There's many talented wrestlers still in Canada that may never get a work visa.
Yeah,
but it's extremely hard to break out of Canada to become a successful pro wrestler because there's not a scene in Canada to make a living.
Yeah. So where was it exactly that you trained at?
Okay, so this is wild story. All right, you ready?
All right.
14-year-old me goes to WrestleMania 18, Hulk versus Rock versus Hogan.
Uh-huh.
After the event, I get handed a flyer. 2-week summer camp this coming July, ages 14 and up.
Okay.
I said, well, I'm 14. So I went home and I asked for more hours for my part-time job because I just paid $800 for like third row tickets to WrestleMania 18, which is crazy when you think about it now.
Yeah.
Crazy when you think about it. Now I'm like, God, I could have spent $1,600 and still would have been better off than going to WrestleMania this year.
Right.
So I get new hours. I get the money together. I call. I put my down payment in. I go to a 2-week summer camp. But during this 2-week summer camp, you also had their night classes. So they ran classes Tuesday and Thursday. They also ran classes Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
So I trained all day, Monday to Friday, plus Tuesday and Thursday evening classes. Mm-hmm. Then I did the Friday and Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. Then I did the next full week with those 2 classes. And that Friday night, I was supposed to be in a battle royal, but I did so good in training that they gave me a match after 2 weeks of training.
That's crazy.
Then I reached out to other schools, but they wouldn't take kids under 16.
Right.
And I was technically illegally wrestling at 14 because we had an athletic commission.
Yeah.
But they sold gym memberships because the training school and the arena was all in the same building.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. So them selling memberships to a gym rather than tickets to a show meant we could wrestle. Gotcha. So I wrestled for 2 years there, and then I joined Squared Circle Wrestling, where I would say my head trainers were Joe Legend, Tyson Dukes, and Sin Bodhi.
Okay.
It was a lucha school, and the only reason I don't say that Rob Fuego trained me was he would just teach all the girls lucha spots.
Gotcha.
Right? Because why wouldn't you just want all the girls that come there that know that Gail Kim and like once Ron Hutchison's school closed down, he put a bunch of info out that all the girls that were successful came from his school. So every fitness model that wanted to be Trish Stratus went to the school.
Yeah.
So why would the owner of the school not be teaching them head scissors?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
I mean, that style was what was popular, for that time. So, yeah.
So that, he taught me lucha stuff. He was good at teaching me lucha stuff. But as far as wrestling, and, at the end of the day, I'm pretty thankful for Fuego for teaching me that lucha stuff because had he not, I probably would have never won the CML Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that. But he just, he ended up being one of those guys that would rent out his ring and just shit all over the shows. And I never appreciated that.
Yeah.
Because as somebody who runs a school, to me, you should be the person that goes, hey, take him aside, say, hey, you guys need some work. Like,
Yeah.
here's some stuff I think you should work on. We have a drop-in fee. Come to the school, and maybe I can help you some more.
Right.
But instead, he sat up there with a bunch of other wrestlers talking shit about everybody, and I thought that was disrespectful as a trainer.
Who does that help?
Nobody. And I get it. Like, I mean, I don't get it. I'm never that guy. I might look at a monitor and go, "What the f was that?"
Right. Yeah.
But that's just in the moment because I'm watching it and I want the people to do good. And then when the people come back, I will ask them like, "Hey, what was that supposed to be?" Because everything was going smooth, but then that's acceptable. But just just crap all over somebody. It's like, man, you're a trainer, you're a coach. Like, do your job.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say at Squared Circle it was Tyson, Joe, and Sin, and then a lot of self-teaching throughout the years too, because the first school was not good. I mean, any school that's going to train a 14-year-old is likely not good.
Right.
So me and my friends would go in early and stay late. We try to teach ourselves the indie style, because at that time at that school, even when I went to Squared Circle, it was kind of the same. Everybody kind of had this vision of, I want to go to WWE.
Yeah.
And I remember going into these schools and showing them like Ring of Honor and CZW when they were doing like the best Briscoe brother versus Briscoe brother, and it was crazy. I was showing all these amazing matches that I found in the indies. Like, nobody had heard of Chris Hero or CM Punk or any of these guys, and I'm showing them tapes of them. They're like, "What's this?" I'm like, "This is where I want to wrestle. Like, I want to wrestle here, here, and here, and then go to WWE. Like, I want to be like, these are my ECWs,
Yeah.
And not a lot of people were like that in Canada at first. I would say Danger Boy Derek Wilde and then me kind of like changed the style in Ontario. Because before me, like I'm saying, you had your Sean Spears, your Cody Deaner, your Eric Young, your Bobby Roode, all absolutely fantastic wrestlers.
Yeah.
But they wrestled the style that they wrestle.
Right. Yes.
Then you look at me, Josh Alexander, Ethan Page, like the guys that came out after my influence.
Yeah.
We don't wrestle that way. If you go watch Ontario now, they don't wrestle that way.
Oh, okay. So it kind of changed it for there too.
Yeah, I changed it for Ontario. So nothing else. Like, the style that I do was a style that was influenced from the indie guys like CM Punk and Chris Hero and the Briscoe brothers and Trent Acid and Jody Fleisch and Reckless Youth. And like, I never not want to put Reckless Youth in that, because like, I think he's an unsung hero of the indies that people don't appreciate.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we really, Danger Boy was the first one that was doing some crazy stuff, but then we got together and I was like, hey, the double underhook destroyer you do? You should do that to me off the top rope.
Oh.
And two morons that want to push the envelope is a bad mix, because nobody's there being the voice of reason.
Right.
So, we were a lot self-taught. We really did change the Ontario style. I'm not saying we changed on all of Canada, but for Ontario as a whole, like, we were trying to bring that Generico Steen influence from Montreal into Ontario, and it hadn't broke in yet.
Yeah. Well, so there's one match that I want to bring up. I just saw some clips from it again today, and wonderful match. And it's the one with you and Omega in New Japan. Man, you guys' styles just work together so well. How was it planning that out and doing that match?
There are a handful of people that is so easy to put a match together with.
Yeah.
And Kenny's one of them.
Yeah.
Like, we are on the same, and listen, I like to make sure I'm very cautious with what I say, because people like to spin everything I say. I am not saying at all that Kenny is not an amazing wrestler and the best in the world. He is.
Yeah.
But our minds think so similar that we would sit there and it would be like, what if we do this? And then he'd be like, into this. And I'd be like, but then we do that into this. And it just flows.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have a similar style in the way we think of wrestling.
Yeah.
And my proudest moment of any of those matches is, if you'll see, I did this spot with Kenny, and now he does it in all his big matches where it's like a double duck hitting the ropes and then the flying knee.
Yeah.
He just did it with Gabe Kidd at the Tokyo Dome.
Uh-huh.
That was a spot I needed to get in. Like, I was like, I have this idea, and I think with me and you's momentum and how I'm dumb and put my head into everything so it looks as real as possible, and how talented Kenny is, it's going to look like you killed me.
Yeah.
And I remember, was that which one did you watch, from the G1 or from the US?
I think it was the one in the US. It's the one I watched.
With JR on commentary?
Yeah.
So I remember Steve Austin and JR were at that show.
Yeah.
And when we did that sequence into the knee, the both are there, like, Austin, goddamn kid, I thought that knee killed you, And Jim Ross goes like, man, we did that. If you guys did that spot in Mid-South, we could have stretchered you off and brought you back in a couple weeks. Like, we just,
Yeah.
And I was like, those moments are so much more fun to me than the match itself, because I grew up, JR was a voice of my youth.
Yep.
Steve Austin was I got suspended so many times for flipping people the bird. Like, come on, how can you? Between that and the crotch chop, it's like we got suspended every week.
Yeah. Third grade was not happy for my teachers.
Yeah, right. So they were childhood heroes who then had a compliment for something in my match. It was, dude, Kenny's amazing, and it just was so easy. And like, when he was gonna come to TNA, the angle was supposed to be me and him.
Yeah.
And how it happened was Don and him are tight.
Mm-hmm.
So Don was trying to get him in. And then when he started flirting with actually coming in, Don said, well, who do you want to work with? And he said, well, I want to work with Elgin.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, a story that not many people know unless they've heard it from me, the Wrestle Kingdom that he wrestled Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Had Chris Jericho not agreed, we were going to do me, him, and Ibushi because he had asked for it.
Oh, wow. That would have been cool to see.
Yeah. So, I had an idea that I wanted to be on the apron.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted Kenny to Rana Ibushi onto me, which would then Rana me to the floor.
Oh, okay.
So they would be on the top rope.
Yeah.
And as he Rana them, I would catch them.
Yeah.
And take it into the thing. I think we could have done it.
That would have been cool.
So that match is a fond memory of mine. Everyone I had with him.
Yeah.
And another funny tidbit is that Gato actually wanted me against Kenny in the finals.
Oh, okay.
But because he had liked our work with each other in Japan so much, he wanted that to be the finals in the States.
Yeah.
But is it Kadani? The head company wanted a Japanese talent in it because it was New Japan in the States, not, you know what I mean?
Right.
So the owner, whatever the company owner was, not Gato the booker, what company, do you remember what company owns New Japan?
I don't know.
Whatever the company does that owns them said no, they wanted Japanese talent, so they switched the brackets around, so it was me and Kenny in the first round.
Gotcha.
But yeah, man, Kenny's otherworldly. I'm so glad that he's overcome everything he's overcome, and tomorrow night I'm going to be watching him and Brian Cage because Brian's amazing and Kenny's amazing. I think they'll have an amazing match.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you've done some work with Brian as well. You were tag champions with him, weren't you?
Yep, worked tag with him in PWG, had a couple singles in PWG, and also had a little feud in TNA with him.
Yeah, when he was champion on there, I believe. Yeah. So you've worked with all these amazing guys and stuff, and I'm going back through and watching some of your matches, and I love what I see. And one thing that sticks out is chemistry. And if you don't have that in the ring, then a match is going to fall flat, and one thing I'm seeing with a lot of these guys is you had chemistry with them.
Yeah. I was in these companies with a great group of talent.
Yeah.
And not only that, we all trusted each other. We all knew that nobody was trying to make themselves look better than the other.
Right.
We were all trying to have the greatest matches possible that we could have together.
Yeah.
And I think that's not what's happening now, at least on an indie level.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see an indie level like the Ring of Honor I was in. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. It was a murderer's row.
Yeah.
Of people.
Yeah.
I mean, during my time there, it was me, Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards, Chris Hero, Claudio. Like some of these guys have moved on, but you know what I
Right.
mean? It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
just that, like Claudio. Who else was there? Daniels was still there when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
The
Well, Steen
Young
was
Bucks
there.
were coming in. Steen was there.
Yeah.
Generico was
Yeah.
there. Kyle O'Reilly was there. Adam Cole was there.
Yeah.
TJ Perkins was there. Like, do I need to keep going?
It was a great crew, man.
Right? It's like how do you not become this amazing wrestler going through this with people you trust? Like I
Yeah.
remember Kevin Steen didn't have to do this to me. We were in Toronto and he's like, "Hey man, I want you to kick out of the package pile driver and then we'll finish it with the package pile driver off the second."
Oh. Oh
He
wow.
didn't have to do
Yeah.
that for me,
No.
but he trusted that I was going to do whatever I could in that match to make him look as good as possible because he
Right.
would do the same for me.
Right.
And he was just a solid guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we all went out of our way to help each other create our stars.
Yeah.
Like our stars were born to then create the next person as stars.
Right.
And it started going away real probably right before I left. I remember being directly asked why I gave Cedric and Dijak so much in our matches.
Yeah.
I was like, these guys are great. Like they've got to be stars.
Yeah.
How
I
are they
mean,
going to become stars unless they have breakout match?
right. Well, it's all about building each other, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to be able to do that.
Some people, I've never been a person. Have I ever criticized somebody's work? Yes, but it's never to make them feel bad. It's to
Right.
try to get them to see what they need to do to go to the next level.
Right.
Like there's still a lot of growth for me, and that's after 23 years in wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still learn stuff every day.
Yeah.
So to tell me that somebody who might have less experience or at least less top quality experience than me doesn't need a little help, I think there's just like almost an arrogance around the wrestling business now where people don't really want to get better. I don't want to hear anybody tell them they need to get better while also trying to say they want to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, do you prefer working heel or face, or do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference.
Yeah.
I've learned that I'm a natural baby face.
Yeah.
Meaning I've never been in a company very long and been a heel.
Right. Yeah.
Like Ring of Honor, by my second year in the company, everybody wanted me as a face.
Right. Yeah.
New Japan, I didn't even last a whole tour as a heel. Like
Yeah.
I got so over in New Japan that they ended up bringing me over and teaming me with their biggest baby face of all time, Tanahashi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I went to CMLL, and my second time there, my first time there, I won a title. The second time there, I won the trophy for the Grand Prix, and the next foreigner to win it was Claudio last year.
Yeah.
Like, I think because I'm such a student of the game that
Yeah.
people start appreciating what I can do in the ring,
Right.
and then I can't be a heel.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Well, and
even if I'm doing heel stuff, they appreciate that everything I do looks like it hurts somebody.
Right.
I do my best to my ability of blurring the lines of real and worked.
Right. Which, that makes for the best wrestling,
Yeah.
is when you're like, wait, am I watching something I'm not supposed to be seeing, and, making the people who are watching it forget, that what they're watching is,
There's been times where I wrestle somebody for the first time and we get to the back and they go, "Oh my God, I was so worried all week about wrestling you. I thought you were going to kill me out there." And I go, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Every time I watch you, it looks like you're just beating people up."
Yeah.
I go, "Okay, now think about it this way. How do you feel?" "I feel fine." "Did anything hurt?" "No, nothing hurt." So if I tricked you, what do you think the people think?
Exactly.
And then you see that light bulb go off like, "Oh shit. If I know what this is about and you fooled me, then those people are definitely fooled."
Right.
That's how you grow
Yeah.
wrestling. Is people want to feel something.
Yeah.
They don't want to just see something, and that's the lost art.
Right. So do you have a favorite opponent, or if you have a list of favorite opponents?
It'd be a list.
It would be a list. Do you have a top 5?
I could maybe squeeze 5.
Okay. All right.
I'll tell you why. They're all significant matches to me,
Okay.
which makes those opponents so much greater.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So like Daisuke Sakimoto, do you know him from Big Japan?
Okay. Yeah.
So I wrestled him in 2019 after he was my first time to Japan after leaving New Japan for TNA.
Okay.
I went to Big Japan to wrestle Sakimoto, and it was their first sellout in 9 years in Corrigan Hall.
Wow.
So not only did I help a company sell out the building,
Mm-hmm.
it won Indie Match of the Year in the magazine for TVSI. I have an award for it.
Yeah.
And they told me it was their best selling DVD of all time.
Wow.
Yeah. So that would be probably number 1.
Okay. All right.
Number 2 would be Kenny.
Yeah.
1, because like you said, our chemistry was off the charts.
Yep.
But not only was it off the charts, like a very significant thing in my career happened by being in New Japan's first ever ladder match and beating him for the Intercontinental title. So that was a big significant thing in my career.
Yes.
Number 3, I think, would be Davey Richards.
Okay. Yeah.
2012, the match with him at Ring of Honor was really what made people, I think, see that I was a top guy.
Yeah.
And Davey was always great to me. I remember showing up to that building and going, Davey, do you have any ideas for tonight? And he looked at me and said, tonight's your night. What do you want to do? And luckily, I'd been up all night the night before watching Davey Richards matches, coming up with ideas of why it would flow with my stuff so that we would have chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then 4 would be Kevin Steen. Kevin
Okay.
Owens, for people who don't know him as Steen.
Yeah.
Again, some of my favorite matches were with him.
Yeah.
That Mississauga title match was a big match for me. And then number 5, I would probably put Eddie Edwards, because
All right.
he is the best wrestler that nobody will ever talk about being the best wrestler, and it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, he's just as good as anybody ever.
I agree. Yeah.
And the fact that he never went to WWE or is never in AEW, and this isn't even a knock on TNA.
Yeah.
It's just he deserves that praise.
Right.
And I wish he had gotten it already, but I hope maybe he still has it and wants it in him, because the world needs to understand how good. Like, I don't think people understand that him against Kenny Omega, whew, it would be ridiculously good.
Right. Well, I mean, I can't think of a single match that I've watched of his that wasn't off the charts, that wasn't amazing, everything that I've watched him in, nothing bad comes to mind when I'm thinking about that.
It's just he's had such a long career in TNA.
Yeah.
During TNA's downtime, I don't think anybody will truly appreciate how great he is unless they watched him in Ring of Honor and Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah. Yeah. So going into TNA side of things just a little bit here for a second, my favorite time during the they had a few things in their product that I really enjoyed during the era when people weren't allowed to be in the arenas.
Right.
I found what they were doing a lot more entertaining than the Thunderdome stuff that WWE was doing, because they were making it different. They were making, you had your matches, but then they had, was it Tommy Dreamer's house that they were at, and made it into like almost a, what do you call it? Like a reality TV type of thing,
Right.
I found a lot of what they were doing way more entertaining than what anybody else was doing. They had something there during that time that you weren't finding anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, speaking about that, I kind of want to transition here just a little bit to kind of talk about some of the things that, I know you've had a few things that you've posted online here even recently. I think yesterday, you were posted something about it, and I kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to, kind of tell your side of everything and what actually, happened.
Okay, I'll run you through the exact timeline of what happened.
Okay.
There was accusations on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
that I had no clue about until I got a call telling me that Dave Christ and Joey Ryan were being fired for accusations against them.
Right.
That they are going to look into the matter with me. So they're going to investigate it.
Okay.
And the person that called me said, hey, it might take a while, but I had somebody say something about me in the company, and the company fought it for me, and it took some while, but it got cleared up. So we got your back. Okay.
Yeah.
What are the accusations? And he literally goes, I don't know. So I go on social media and I pull up the accusations, and I literally sent the accusations to this guy. I go, this is really what you have to investigate? Look what they're saying.
Yeah.
So again, for anybody listening to this, go find what the actual people said that I did, not how it's spun by everybody else.
Right.
Go actually see what they said.
Yeah.
Because I know you can't tell me what I was accused of. Just anybody listening, they can't. They can't.
Right. Right.
Because if you go and you even listen, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want to make people believe something, if you know what I mean. Like, go find.
Right.
They probably can't find it because what most false accusers do is they say something and then they delete it so that they don't get called on it later, or they can change their story later, and there's nobody that can detour from that unless you screenshot the second you see it, which I do.
Smart.
So if you, number one, so that was what it said to me.
Yeah.
Then the next day I get a call saying that they're not going to investigate. And during this time, I had 24 hours where I sent them text messages, witness statements, all this kind of stuff, like everything.
Yeah.
And the only reason I had witness statements is one of the items that was said, there was 3 people present during it, so that they had eyewitness accounts of what happened that night.
Right.
So I sent that all to them, So they have all this info. Then they tell me they're not going to bother investigating because they don't want to clear my name, because if they clear my name, social media will attack them, and they're on a rebrand.
Okay.
Or no, not a rebrand. They're on a rebuild, right? Because 2020 was when they were trying to get hot again.
Right.
Like, my decision to leave New Japan to spend more time in my son's life to go to TNA was a piss poor business decision at that time. Like, think about it. 2019, New Japan was still really hot because AEW hasn't formed.
Right.
TNA was not doing well.
No, they weren't.
So I went because I wanted to spend more time with my son.
Yeah.
And Don had been bugging me since he went to New Japan to come over to TNA.
Yeah.
Right? So all this is happening. They say that to me. And then they leave it with, but we're going to pay you for the next 2 years to finish out your contract. And if the social media backlash dies down, we'll bring you back on TV. Then went no answers to emails, no phone calls, no producing the investigation, because I asked them, where's this investigation? Because if I'm getting punished and you said you're going to do an investigation, where is it?
Right.
Because then you told me you're not going to do an investigation.
Yeah.
Right. And then the public only saw we're going to investigate, then saw we're taking them off TV.
Yeah.
So logically, if you put 2 and 2 together through that, you automatically think, oh, they investigated. He was guilty. He's fucking gone.
Exactly.
But they didn't investigate, because had they investigated, they would have cleared my name.
Yeah.
But because nothing is ever done through the cops, you don't have a bunch of stuff. I sued people and I won lawsuits.
Yeah.
But they're civil lawsuits. And what people say then is, well, it's a civil lawsuit. Yeah, but if they had civilly sued me, you would have said that I did something if they won.
Right.
But it's never, I can just never get ahead, because no matter what I do, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You're suing a victim, but you win the lawsuit, so they're not a victim.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but just because they couldn't produce evidence. What? Wait, think of what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Like that's literally I'm telling you tweets that I have read.
Well, and the thing is that all it did was make you look bad. I mean, it they didn't investigate it.
No.
I know.
Think about it this way, and I hate to bring up these names. Go Google Tyler Bate and JD or Jordan Devlin, who's JD McDonough.
Okay.
2020, they were both accused.
Yeah.
WWE said they would investigate. They got taken off TV, then got brought back. Now everybody's excited. Tyler Bates coming back from a torn pec, and JD McDonough has been killing it with the Judgment Day.
Yep.
And I'm not saying they did anything. I'm just saying, look how the company dealt with it.
Right.
And they're still two big stars.
Right. Right. Yeah.
If you had to invest, and they didn't have to release the investigation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, they were accused. I have the article saved because it messes me up some days.
Right.
How everything went down with TNA.
Yeah.
And even at this point, I don't wish ill will against TNA. I don't wish ill will against any of the talent.
Right.
I hope TNA becomes a super profitable company, which gives more people a platform to make a living doing what they love. I would love that. And
Yeah.
I just praised Eddie Edwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's literally one of my favorite wrestlers ever.
Right.
And he's there. Moose is there. I love Moose.
Yeah.
I love the Rascals. But sadly, I'm upset to see that Bay got hurt. Bay was a great friend. Ace Austin. Like, I love all the talent there. It has nothing to do with that. And I think sometimes people on social media think like, because I had a problem with how the company dealt with me, I automatically want the company to fail or I want something bad for the talent. Like, no, I just want you to be honest about me. Like,
Right.
I don't want to harm them in any way because it's just not, that's not what I'm trying to do.
You're just trying to clear your name.
That's it. You know what I mean?
I know that you also had an article that came out, I think it was in September, talking about a lot of this, trying to clear your name and everything. And, I mean, it had brought up a lot of, good talking points when it comes to everything that's happened, and I know that you've also tried reaching out to people to see about them even looking into it.
Yeah.
And what was the response you were getting from them?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Last I heard, there is somebody with Fightful working on a story about me.
Oh.
But the question is, will Sean Ross Sapp run it? Because his exact quote is, I'm trying to get this right. If my name gets cleared, it's still unlikely I'll get picked up by, and my name's already cleared, so he's dumb. But anyway, it's unlikely he'll get touched by a big company, so I wouldn't have an inside source by running that story. So what's it good to me?
Wow.
He writes a fluff piece.
Yeah.
And these people become his sources. So go back and read all of his fluff pieces and see who he fluffs up. And then you'll know who his inside sources are for the scoops.
Right.
And to me, you should be fired for that. You want to talk about cancel culture? Let's talk about that. You're ruining the business by giving people scoops about surprise appearances, about finishes of matches, about what's happening in the backstage. All you're doing is ruining our business for people like that who don't give a shit about you.
Yeah. That's one thing I don't enjoy that. I want to be surprised when it comes to wrestling still.
Hate it. It's the worst thing in wrestling. I remember Dave Meltzer used to try to get dirt from me all the time.
Yeah.
And I would never, ever tell him anything.
Yeah.
I would never tell him anything.
Yeah.
He never got one scoop from me. Because I remember people, like, somebody saw a picture of me with him and was like, oh, trying to be Dave Meltzer's favorite wrestler. I go, I talk with him. I like talking with him.
Yeah.
But never once have I given him a scoop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, when it comes to people who are making a comeback, who's coming now. It's not a surprise anymore. Yeah. I mean, because, weeks in advance, they were talking to so-and-so. Even Punk, I'll even say that, it was kept very good secret. But at the same time, we all kind of was like, this might be the night that he shows up,
But see, that's different.
Yeah.
But that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right.
But knowing that he's there is bad.
Right.
Yeah. But going, man, this could be it. Do I watch it? Do I watch? Because if that, man,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a different, that gets you like, that gives you like a feeling like a kid almost,
Right. Right.
which is what pro wrestling is supposed to give to you.
Right.
That's what is wrong with a lot of wrestling out there
Yeah.
is it's going through the motions instead of giving people a reason to have emotions.
Yeah.
That's what wrestling's about.
Right. Right. So I read something about you, and I wanted to ask you about this. I read that you are a public speaker. What kind of
Yes.
stuff do you do? The public speaking. What do you like? Is it a wrestling public speaking, or do you have?
I cover wrestling, but mostly it's about overcoming situations that you put on yourself. I shouldn't say put on yourself. I'm trying to help people who are going through depression
Yeah.
or any life stress that they feel they can't get out of.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
because man, I went through some dark times. Like I'll be honest, 100% honest. Had something or somebody not intervened, I probably would have not been alive
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So I know how dark it gets. But then to see where I've come from there, because that was 2021, I'm married. I have a not even 4-month-old daughter. Like,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's like those things had to happen for me to appreciate these things that
Yeah.
I didn't always get to have. Like,
Right.
I think that the hardest part of going through that, and I'm glad that everything's cleared up now and that I can get back to normal.
Yeah.
But during that process, it's like it's the toughest thing you can ever do.
Yeah.
And then to give it meaning, like I saw somebody say something the other day which kind of offended me. But it also made me realize that it offended me because I don't think anybody's articulated it to people. And this is about the public speaking.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I think it was about Odyssey Jones.
Okay.
He made a video, and quoted a Bible verse. And the post was like, why do all these MFers do something terrible and despicable and then find God? And it's like, that isn't what happens.
Yeah.
What happens is, yes, you have to give it up to something greater than yourself, because if you do anything alone, you're set to fail.
Yeah.
Like anything,
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If we just plopped the kid out and then walked away, that kid's gonna die.
Right. Yeah.
It has to learn how to eat, then it has to learn how to feed itself, and then it has to learn how to walk, and then it has to learn, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
we all need help through life, and unfortunately, especially men, and it's not gender exclusive, but especially men, we put so much more burdens on ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes we got to understand that we have to ease those burdens because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what I found. Like, as I said, man, 2021, I wrote out a will, everything.
Wow.
Yeah, man, I was ready. I was ready to be out of here. And then for whatever reason, my wife, now wife, just wouldn't leave me alone, and she texted me when I was ready to go and
Yeah.
lit up my phone and saw a picture of my son on my phone and saw her texting, and for whatever reason, that text had to come through in that moment, and it did. It literally saved my life, seeing her text and my son.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dark, dark time, and people don't understand that. And I think they don't understand that because they don't understand what wrestling was to me. Like, that was like losing a family member for a little bit,
Right.
like a close family member too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I just told you 2 weeks after I was born was when my love of pro wrestling started.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like they tried to do something. But not only did they try to do something, they tried to do something that was evil because they knew they were lying.
Yeah.
And not only did they knew they were lying, they knew they were lying for fame.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm not saying anybody became famous off it, but with the rise of social media and the rise of being able to add monetary value to your social media, you see this stuff happen.
Mhm.
And for people to say it doesn't happen, I think is wrong. But for anybody to say that every accusation is false, that's also wrong. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's horrendous.
Yeah.
I've been on shows, and whether these female wrestlers ever want to come out and say where somebody's done something inappropriate, and I'm the first person to snatch somebody by the back of their neck
Yeah.
because of that, and that adds on to it. It's like, not only are you trying to destroy wrestling, you're trying to destroy wrestling with lies, and those lies are also something that I'm so against
Right.
that,
Yeah.
I don't think like nothing, any kind of BS towards kids or women drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Like if I see a guy in a restaurant being shitty with a female server, any server, but especially a
Yeah.
female server, I'm like, hey, buddy, fucking
Yeah.
lighten up,
Right. Right.
So like that all added to it, and that makes you down like a dark hole, man. Because it's like, and then I think not only that, like the drastic change of people being like, yo, Elgin's like the best wrestler I've ever seen, to like, yo, F him, I hope he dies. It's like, you're not even giving me a chance.
Right. Right.
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then today I saw somebody post a story about Odyssey Jones, and all the replies underneath is like, yo, we shit on him and he was innocent. I hope he sues WWE. It's like, yo, where was that energy
Yeah.
when I put out the proof that I was innocent?
Right.
And then I still had to sue people, and then still had to get more. And then still now, you know what I mean? It took me 4 years to get back to normal where my messages are blowing up about bookings and stuff.
Yeah. So
Like,
how long did it take you after this happened to finally get back in the ring?
I was in the ring right after my contract ended. So this is what happened. They wouldn't let me wrestle
Right.
while I was under contract.
Well, sure. I'm sure that messed with you too, because it's been such a big part of your life.
Yeah, so like they sat me at home doing nothing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't let me take third-party bookings. They booked me in Japan, then canceled me from Japan. So it was only that, and then I went over to Japan, and then I was doing indies before I went back to Japan.
Yeah.
And then since I've come back, I had a year off for my neck, and right now I'm waiting to see a surgeon because I re-injured my neck at work before I can get back to in ring. But like I'm hoping that I can get back because I still haven't main evented WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And I'm the type of person who doesn't like leaving things unfinished. So
Right. Right. So what's next, man? Where do you go from here? Because I know, reading what you said, I think it was yesterday, you got that email, and I think you said it was your grandmother's birthday. In fact, where do you go from here after that?
I think I focus on making sure my neck's okay, making sure my family's okay, and then I think it's time to go to WWE, to be honest.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and I don't want anybody thinking that that's a diss to AEW. It's not.
Right.
AEW, but they're also a very internet heavy company, meaning social media, there's always going to be detractors to me. There's always going to be somebody that said I did something I didn't. That's just life.
Yeah.
But like I said, with Tyler Bate and JD McDonough, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Because the company stuck by them and they're talented.
Yeah.
And not only that, WWE is, that's what I grew up on,
Right. Right.
Like, yeah, I'm a Bret Hart guy. Like, I got to go to WWF.
I got his book right over here, man.
Huh?
I got his book right over here.
Yeah, man. Bret's like, he's my guy.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I've ever had the fortune of having a conversation with him, I can just tell like I have a similar thought process to him.
Yeah.
And then going back to the beginning of this conversation about Canadian wrestlers, like I genuinely think that's a thing. Because every time I've ever had a conversation with him or ever heard about him talk about wrestling, it's like, yeah, man, like I could see myself saying those words.
Right.
So, yeah.
So do you have anything coming up that maybe you want to talk about?
Yeah, I help out with CIW. I have the shirt on. Championship International Wrestling. We run in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
And Hillsdale area in Michigan. We got local TV in Toledo. We update our shows the week after they are on TV on our YouTube channel. So I'm producing, agenting, and wrestling there. So I'm wearing kind of all hats.
Wow.
For anybody watching, I am the champion, yes, but that was put into motion before I started booking. Do not think I'm the booker that does that. It was a plan put in motion, and then I was asked to book after I was asked to book out an angle for me to win the belt.
Okay.
And then the promoter liked it so much that he also wanted to hire me as booker for the whole show. And we were already mid into this story, so I couldn't change paths.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my main thing, man. We got a lot of young, talented individuals and some older, talented individuals that I think the world needs to see. And I brought in some friends from the Detroit area that have high level experience to help agent the back and help with promo. So we're getting a lot of guys, a lot of coverage. Freedom Ramsey, who's with the WWE, got the WWE ID thing. He's one of our guys.
Yeah.
Not taking credit for him, not whatsoever. He was trained by Truth Martini and wrestled for City Championship Wrestling in the Detroit area. So if you're in Detroit, go check out City Championship Wrestling. But yeah, so Freedom Ramsey's with us, and he's getting a lot of good press from WWID, and we're doing a lot of thing, and I hope that it's also helping Freedom get the TV experience he'll need if he gets picked up with WWE, because we run it like a TV. Like, I help agents so they know where the cameras are, know when to take their beats, know when their promos are. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can create a system that helps people get ready for wrestling on TV.
All right. So we're kind of coming up close to a close here. I just got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah, of course.
And then we'll get you off of here. Where can people follow you if they want to follow you online and, see what you're doing out there?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Aaron Frobel 86. I have a wrestling psychology page. I haven't updated it in a while because I have a love-hate relationship with wrestling sometimes, but I love it. I love it right now. So we're doing good, but I've been posting a lot of updates on social media, just wrestling tips of the day, just to help wrestlers or even fans get maybe a little better knowledge of psychology so they can appreciate it a little bit more.
Yes.
Because when I hear the word psychology come out of very novice fans' mouths, it doesn't anger me, but it's like you're talking about something you have. Have you ever seen The Big Lebowski?
I have, yeah.
Okay, you know that scene when they're talking about the carpet, and every time he chimes in, he goes, "You don't have any frame of reference in this conversation."
Yeah,
like, I feel like that sometimes, and not even in a bad way. It's just like how can you critique something you don't understand?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like if you put a Picasso in front of me and don't tell me it's Picasso, I'm not gonna know if it's worth $1 or $1 million.
Right.
Because I don't have a frame of reference in the art world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
might see it and believe it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I don't know nothing about it.
Right.
So it's like I can't judge it on the merits of how it's judged.
Right.
I can judge it on my merits.
Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the world's going to see it.
Right. Yeah. But social media.
Social media. I will say this. Wrestling psychology interests me, because it gives a why. Why do you do this in the ring? And so I enjoy being able to talk about that when I can.
This is what I'll say. You opened up that dialogue more advanced than some wrestlers, because when I teach, when I do anything, the basic routine I try to have everybody follow is why, when, where.
Yep.
Then you worry about the what. The what doesn't matter.
Right.
If the what mattered, Randy Orton wouldn't be as over as he is.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's not bad. I'm not saying anything bad.
No.
Because look at Austin at his peak.
Yeah. I will say this. I think that for me, the way Randy carries himself and just the little things that he does in the ring to get people to either boo him or, just get that extra little bit of hate in there. Just a facial expression, man. He's one of the best, in my opinion, when it comes to that. Yep.
Why?
Yep.
Where?
Yep.
Where are you doing it? Why are you doing it? When are you doing it?
Yep.
And then you know what to do.
Exactly.
But you can't know what to do unless you know why, when, and where.
Yeah.
It's such an easy concept, it feels.
Yeah.
but it's not. And I don't know where that happened. Like I'm telling you, I could run a live stream for 24 hours and still have a lot to talk about when it comes to pro wrestling and psychology and the mindset of it.
Oh yeah.
It's just, to me, there is nothing more beautiful than a wonderfully crafted pro wrestling match.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you right now, if we were to sit here and watch Owen versus Brett from the Open of WrestleMania 10,
Yeah.
I might shed a tear of how beautiful that match is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that match alone, not being a 5-star match, tells me that somewhere Dave lost his mind. Because I have 2 5-star matches, and look, that's a cool accomplishment.
Right.
Anybody that says different, F off. It is a cool accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because when I was a tape trader, you wanted to find the tapes that Dave Meltzer rated as a 5-star match. Even 12-year-old me, actually it was 10-year-old me that ordered my first VHS tape, knew that.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I read all the magazines. So it's like, it's a cool thing. But that match, there's nothing wrong with that match.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as perfect of a match as you're ever going to see.
Yeah. I can't argue with you on that.
It literally, I'm telling you, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And like, that is what, if somebody was to say, why do you love pro wrestling? That match, or October, is it 25th or 30th? No, October 31st, 97, Kobashi versus Masawa.
Okay.
Those 2 matches are what I would show people why I love pro wrestling.
I like that.
97 or 98. Might have been 98. I'm fried. Like, my brain's so fried when it comes to wrestling. I want to say it's 98.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's those 2 matches are like why I love pro wrestling. That's also what kind of angers me. Did you ever see that Kobashi documentary that wrestling call-in guy made?
I didn't see that one. Where can I find it at?
It's on YouTube. I will send you over the link.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
If you have time, watch it tonight.
Okay.
Okay. And then all you have to do is message me. I understand. And or you don't.
Yeah.
That is what, watching that made me more frustrated with the online wrestling world.
Yeah.
Because that is why I love pro wrestling, is that is how I envision myself as a pro wrestler.
Okay.
So if you watch that and picture, that's what I'm thinking pro wrestling is, and what pro wrestling has become. That's what frustrates me the most. And you'll see it's nothing about the moves. It's nothing about high spots.
Yeah.
You'll see what I mean.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for somebody, or advice that maybe you wish that you would have gotten when you first started in wrestling?
Always be respectful. Always ask for advice. Learn to know what advice to keep and what advice not to keep.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts before I get you off of here?
Well, what other topics do you usually talk about on your shows?
Oh, well,
what's a favorite of yours to discuss?
Are you talking about in wrestling? Because I have,
No, not just in wrestling, in anything.
Okay. Man, I like to talk about a lot of stuff. I talk about anime. I talk about Power Rangers on here. I talk about acting. All kinds of
what would
be
your top when you talk about it? Power Rangers or anime?
Probably Power Rangers. Yeah.
Do you think you could express to me in 3 sentences or less why you like talking about Power Rangers so much?
I could try.
Okay.
Yeah. Man, that's tough. Let's see. So for me, it's nostalgia for one thing for me. That's the
Okay.
reason why I love to talk about it. It was a part of my childhood. It kind of was the thing that was there whenever I was a kid. It's one of the things that I gained some of my first friends in school because of it. So it's always going to be important to me. And in my adult life, I have found lots more friends just from talking about Power Rangers. And I've met tons of people because of it.
So, would you say that you have an emotional connection to the Power Rangers?
Yeah, I guess I could say that.
I mean, guess. Think about it. Your
I will
friends,
say
how do your
this.
friends make you feel?
Yeah, I will say this. Okay, so I guess you watch Power Rangers. You said Tommy, the Green Power Ranger.
Yeah,
who's also the White Power Ranger. The day that he passed away, I actually had just started reading a comic book series about Power Rangers called Shattered Grid. And that particular day, I was reading the comic that he died in. And it was his funeral. I woke up the next morning, found out that he had passed away. And not only did I shed a tear for this, but at the same time, I have not picked that comic book series back up because of how that emotionally made me feel. So I would say, yes, I do have an emotional connection to it.
Feels a lot different when you talk about that, when you express that, right?
Yeah, it does.
Because of that emotional connection.
Yep.
How long do you think you could talk about Power Rangers for?
Hours.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's an emotional connection there.
Yeah.
That is what I want from everybody who watches wrestling to feel. Because that's how I feel when I watch wrestling, and that's how I try to present wrestling.
Yeah.
So that people aren't just talking about, man, those 3 destroyers were cool.
Yeah.
I want them to talk about, it was cool to see so-and-so do this, or so-and-so overcome this.
Right.
And that garners an emotional connection, which makes it, you're remembering it from the early 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because there's an emotional connection there. And that's what brings people together, because we can discuss and articulate our passion with such love and care, really.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we are emotionally, like we have emotional investment. Sometimes it's just because of time, tenure. Tenure can grow to, it's like your wife brings home a dog and you don't really like dogs, but after 2 years that dog's yours. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
You just,
yeah.
So it's a fun thing, and that was a point, because I knew how you just are speaking about anything.
Yeah.
That you could draw that out, and that's good, because that's something that I think we're missing on the pro wrestling side of things, is that emotional connection.
Right.
Because you can feel like, if we watch this back, you'll see your whole demeanor change when you started talking about why you can talk about Power Rangers. Like, I could visibly see it on
right.
your face,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's good, and that's how I knew. Oh, there's emotional connection there,
Right.
because you're thinking, what do I really love about this? And then you kind of, oh wait, I do, yeah. And then it kind of lights up everything about you, right?
Yeah.
That's what pro wrestling is supposed to bring to people, and I feel that outside of WWE, and WWE still work on it, we're missing that aspect of wrestling.
Yeah.
And I want to bring that back to wrestling, and I think I do a very good job at teaching it. So I think if the neck isn't healed for a little bit, I got to take some more time off. Like, contact me on social media for seminars and camps if you like what I'm talking about wrestling, because that we can make wrestling so much better if we work together.
Right.
So that's would be the last message I want to leave.
Awesome, man. It has been great talking to you tonight. I've really enjoyed this. I will talk to you for a few more minutes after we end this recording and everything, but thank you so much, for taking time out to talk to me tonight. And I look forward to seeing what happens next for you.
Thank you so much for giving me the time and platform.
All right. Have a good night, man.
You too.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.